We back college football. The coaches poll comes out this morning, and I've already seen my first overrated and underrated teams in the preseason coaches poll. God, I love this sport. We love this man. I'm going to admit it out loud. Robin Washington from Husker Online joins us. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Doing all right. How are you guys?
Have you gone over the coaches poll? And if not, would you like us to go through 1 through 25?
Yes. No, I have not gone over it, so I would like to just spend this entire segment you just reading off and analyzing each of the 25 teams.
Number 1 is Alabama, I believe is how you pronounce it. They have a guy named Nick Saban is their head coach. Oklahoma is number 3, which is on Nebraska's schedule. But did you think that we would live in a world where Iowa State would be a preseason top 10 coaches poll team in 2021?
I mean, given what we saw from them last year, not surprised, but I mean, the big picture, yes. The fact that Iowa State's there and, the other programs like Nebraska are where they are, it's pretty impressive the job that Matt Campbell has done. And they earned it. I mean, they're the top dogs of the Big 12 now, or at least once OU and Texas move on. So they at least have that temporary crown for a little bit until more things start to shift out here over the next few years.
Hey, have we reached? Are we starting to get into the dog days of camp for the fall?
We're getting there. It's close. Now the good news is, I'll give Keith Mann and the guys credit. They're bringing in different people. I think they had Jordan Riley up today, and there's interesting stuff that came out of his interview. And they brought up a couple of interesting defensive backs, Quentin Newsome and Miles Farmer. So we got some good stuff today. So we're still going strong. But usually by about this time next week, that's when you're really scratching that barrel to come up with some stuff to get you through to game week.
We haven't heard a lot from Quentin Newsome, but we've heard his teammates talk about him. What do you think that starting spot is opposite Cam Taylor-Britt? What do you think the competition is like right now, and do you think he is the front runner to be the starter on opening day?
Well, he definitely was coming out of the spring, and then Tyreek Johnson joined the roster, and that, I think, changed the dynamic a little bit. That competition is very much still playing itself out, and Travis Fisher even today said that Braxton Clark was still in that conversation as well, and he came back really well off that injury that held him off last season. So, I mean, they have a lot of options, but if I'm reading the tea leaves, I'm thinking it's between Newsome and Johnson. Really, it just depends on how quickly Johnson, I think, is able to pick up on the defense, because the one edge Newsome has is his experience, not only with just games played, but games played at Nebraska. So that gives him a bit of a leg up over everyone else in that mix. And then the way that he played this spring certainly kept him in that spot to be the front runner. And from what we've heard, I don't think he's done anything to fall out of that. But, the Tyreek Johnson was brought in here for a reason. And he is a 5-star player for the reason who, by all accounts, has lived up to that billing and then some through his first few practices here in Nebraska. So I think it's one of those two. And really, to me, I think it's just going to be how quickly Johnson can catch up going into game week. That will ultimately decide who that week 0 starter is going to be.
Hey, you've been around here long enough, and you've also had interaction with Travis Fisher, and he's a straight shooter. Hearing Travis Fisher speak today, and the other times that he's spoken in the offseason about a deep and talented defensive back room, what's the sense you get about his feeling of the guys that he's about to take into this season?
I mean, there's a lot to like, and a lot of it has to do with the experience. They have those two safeties are grown men. And then, Cam Taylor-Britt's arguably the best player on the team. So, there's a lot to work with just with that. But then you add in the young talent they have coming up behind those guys with, Johnson, Newsome, Clark, and then you have to say Miles Farmer at the safety spot, and, some of the Noah Pola-Gate, and just the youth movement that has been talked about time and again with the potential they have finally starting to come into their own a little bit. I think he feels pretty good about his group. And it starts at the top with those veterans, but I think the progress being made with the guys behind them has really kind of elevated the confidence in that secondary to where yeah, technically there's still one of the few positions still up for grabs at this point in fall camp, but it's not for a reason of a lack of options. It's a matter of who the best of a group they really like ends up being.
So while we're trying to figure out the vibe from coaches, let's shift to the head coach. And there have been times recently where he said we've had our best week of practice, and after a while we all roll our eyes, and then you see the result and you go, whoa, what was going on in practice if you're feeling that way? Scott has said this a couple of times in the first couple of weeks of camp, that he has fun coaching this team. And maybe it's because they're older and there's not as many teaching moments. Guys just kind of know what they're supposed to do on and off the field. Why do you think he has taken this time to say, I have fun coaching this team?
Well, I think as a coach, when guys know what they're supposed to do and you don't have to spend so much time just kind of going over the basics and, base level stuff, that makes it more fun, because then you can really get into depth of what you want the scheme to be and how to execute certain finer details that take you from being good to potentially being great. And when you have a bunch of veteran players that know what they're doing and have gone through 5 or even 6 fall camps now, that's kind of the luxury you have. And I think that's why this is fun for these guys, to where, they've got a bunch of veteran, older players that have been around the block enough to where they know what's expected on and off the field. They're going to do all the things they're supposed to do. And you don't have to ask them to do it. They're just going to go ahead and do it. And then maybe more importantly, they're holding everyone else accountable to do the exact same thing. So the leadership there to kind of raise the bar of expectation, just with the day-to-day process, that takes so much pressure, or not pressure, so much just tasks off of the coach's plate that, that frees them up to kind of do the stuff that they really enjoy about their profession. So I think that's probably what it comes down to the most.
Doesn't it seem that, and this being into year 4, that a lot of the stuff that maybe Scott talked about in year 1 or year 2 about holding guys accountable, like the stuff that if we all went back and we looked at quotes from 2019 and stuff that's being said or being acted out in 2021, doesn't it seem like they were too far ahead in 19 when they were saying we need this stuff or we want this stuff or we have this stuff, that it's 2 years later we're getting the stuff that they preached, whether it be the head coach on down in 2019?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that, in the sense that, I think the year 4 you would expect it to be the case where there's just an understanding of what needs to happen to make this thing work. And I think that it starts from the bottom, to where I think the coaches have a better understanding, and not only of what they have to work with, but what they need to succeed at this level in this conference and at Nebraska. And so it's kind of been a 4-year learning process, both with coaches and players alike, that I think now everything's kind of starting to click a little bit, to where people are operating under the same page. And hopefully, so far so good. Seems like they've had a very productive off season, and a lot of that has to do with everybody kind of being on the same page. But now the next step is to find a way to translate that into games, which, as we know, has been much easier said than done over the last 3 years.
And that's the wild card in all of this, is now the transition to getting those auxiliary things worked on or shored up. Now, when you are ultimately judged what you do on Saturdays, can you make that transition? We've made the transition in the NIL era. Another fantastic episode from JoJo Domann, this time with his quarterback, Adrian Martinez. I really enjoyed it, listening to it this morning. What was your takeaways from Adrian's discussion with JoJo?
Yeah, he kind of really opened the door a little bit on some stuff that he really hasn't addressed much since he's been here. I was able to get a chance to listen to that last night when it dropped, on our message board, and it was pretty honest and open with, talking about the passing of his mother and how that impacted him and changed him both, at the time, and helped him grow as a man and as a player as a result of that. And he just went over some stuff that things he would have done differently, regrets that he's had, mistakes that he's made that he could do over again, what he would do differently. And really just kind of peeled back some layers a little bit that I think shows who Adrian the person is more than just, Adrian the quarterback we see on the field and at the podium at press conferences. So if anybody gets a chance, I highly recommend checking that out because he kind of pulled back the curtain a little bit for JoJo. I think that's kind of the cool thing about these platforms is, it's not Adrian talking to me or to Sean or any other media member. They're talking with one of their teammates, someone they're around every day and have been around for 4 or 5 years now. And there's a trust factor there. And I think that gives you just a better overall interview opportunity that when you get a guy that is kind of a natural behind the mic like JoJo that's able to ask good questions and time things the right way, you get Adrian to kind of lower his guard down a little bit. And it ends up being a really excellent interview from start to finish. It was a 3-segment interview, so definitely about 35 minutes worth of excellent content from Adrian. And hits on stuff that, like I said, he really hasn't touched on much since he's been here.
So you guys at Husker Online are involved with the McGowans, the Off the Court with Trey and Bryce McGowans, and now this is, the second episode with the beat with JoJo Domann. Do you just sit back and just watch them go at it? I mean, just sit there and listen?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it, it's funny because, with JoJo, like I said, he's just a natural to where, like, he just kind of, he gets it and kind of understands the whole format of it. With Bryce and Trey, they're still new at it. They're still learning, but, every once in a while, they'll just kind of go off and, just kind of go into stuff that you didn't even ask them about, and it ends up being some of the most informative and entertaining stuff of the entire show. So, they're two different personalities, and obviously with, those guys doing it together, it's a different type of show, but again, I think these types of deals, with this NIL stuff, this is the good side, in my opinion, of this movement to, have players be able to market themselves, that they get these opportunities to, show what they're all about on a personal level and, give fans a direct line of access really to, the behind the scenes of them as players and their respective programs. That you wouldn't normally get. I mean, they're not going to say these types of things in a big press conference, and I think that's kind of the real opportunity that these things have for both the players to brand themselves, and then for the fans to, like I said, get an inside look that they probably wouldn't get otherwise.
When do we get Doc Sadler in studio?
In studio? I don't know. He did one over the phone with the guys. I think it was their second or third episode, but it definitely needs to happen. It needs to be multiple segments, so we just let Doc go to town and do his thing, because when Doc's on the air, it is a must listen for Nebraska fans.
What is the plan? And I know it's around their schedule, but what is your hope once their respective seasons begin? If they will be able to continue to do this, like I know JoJo does it on a Monday, whenever the McGowans do it. What's the plan once their respective seasons begin?
Yeah, with JoJo, it's pretty locked in because they Monday afternoons are pretty open for them, so he's going to come in and tape his show once a week every Monday. And with Bryce and Trey, their schedule a little different with the midweek games and road trips during the week and that sort of stuff. So we'll get those in when we can. And then we're going to have to be flexible with that. But the goal is to have those run every Friday morning. Tape at some point during the week and to keep that thing going on through the season because that they expressed an interest to do it on into when the season starts. And I guess unless something crazy happens that prevents that, we're going to stick to that plan.
Will we ever get a crossover? We'll have the McGowans interviewing JoJo Domann, or vice versa.
They were here together. They didn't go on the show, but when JoJo was up here he and Ben Stilley were doing the little tour to promote their camp, and it was all Trey and Bryce were up here, so it was funny. Like because you think back, like Trey McGowan's probably hasn't ever gotten to just like hang out with JoJo Domann, because when they were here, they were all locked in their dorms and in their practice facilities. They didn't interact with other sports that much. So it was like, so you play football? Like, yeah. Oh, what position? Yeah, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of getting to know process that would need to play out before that interview happens.
Robin, we appreciate it, and it's both of them become must listen, and especially JoJo sitting down with his quarterback. And you can find that at the wherever you get your podcasts. I know I get mine through Apple, but you can go to Husker Online and you can find all the information there. Robin, as always, I appreciate it. Have a good week.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Thanks.
That's Robin Washut, and it dropped yesterday. JoJo sits down with Adrian, and it's kind of Robin alluded without giving it all away. It's you're talking to a fellow student athlete, teammate for now 4 years, and they went places that I couldn't or anybody else in the media could take Adrian, and it's very enlightening. Kind of the mindset of where you were and what this year is all about. Want it, going to work for it, and accept responsibility for things that have ailed us in the past that we've identified, and now it's time to move on instead of just clinging to things that have ailed us previously. All right, Tom Chattel joins us next. George will have, with George and myself, his final NBA minute. Not heard the news. George is bailing on the show and on the company. Your silence says it all.
Yeah, because I'm getting stuff ready for you to read.
That's coming up next. It's the Gary Sharp Show on 1620 The Zone.